So I found this really cool article about Lost Records Bloom and Rage. So for those of you that don't know, this is a new game coming out by Don't Nod. So Don't Nod was the original maker alongside Square Enix of the Life is Strange game that came out in 2015. Now they're creating a new game called Lost Records Bloom and Rage. Now this was originally supposed to come out last year, but it got delayed because Life is Strange Double Exposure got announced at the Summer Game Awards 2024 and was also coming out last fall. In order not to compete, Don't Now push their release date out to this year. So I want to go over this article just because I think it was really interesting. We haven't got a ton of news, or at least I haven't been tracking the news of Lost Records Bloom and Rage. And this article came out about a day ago, so it's still pretty recent. So it says, Don't Nod's highly anticipated upcoming indie title, Lost Records Bloom and Rage, is finally around the corner after its original announcement at the 2023 Game Awards. The game was originally slated for a fall 2024 release before Don't Nod decided to move to an early 2025 release in favor of allowing Deck 9's Life is Strange Double Exposure to take the spotlight. This is, in fact, that Life is Strange is Don't Nod's former IP, and fans that know that Lost Records is its own universe, which will have a similar vibe to the original game. While fans were disappointed, they understood, and now the wait is over. I will agree I was disappointed. I feel like Life is Strange kind of did them dirty, the Deck 9 team that took over for Double Exposure, by making them push their game. Because technically Lost Records was announced before Double Exposure was announced, but yet they picked the same release window. And I think that was kind of a shady move on Square Enix and Deck 9's part, especially when their game wasn't that good. I did a review on Life is Strange, and I was disappointed. As someone who's played all the Life is Strange games from 2015 forward, including Life is Strange 2, True Colors, The Adventures of Captain Spirit, I've played all the spinoffs, the prequels, the sequels. I was very disappointed by Double Exposure, and I don't know if I will play another Life is Strange game if Deck 9 is making the story. They do not have good storytelling potential, and I think that makes it very difficult to enjoy a narrative-based game. Now, the game was graphically beautiful. Double Exposure was amazing, but there was no substance, and the ending was terrible. I feel like I wasted 10 hours playing this game and got nothing out of it, except for wait for the sequel that's coming soon. Just terrible. I don't understand what happened. So I'm excited to see where Lost Records takes us. Lost Records follows Don't Nod's standard of releasing their game in separate parts, with the actual time in between each release. The original Life is Strange was split into 5 episodes and released over the course of 10 months. Life is Strange 2 had an even wider release schedule for its 5 episodes, taking over a year to complete, and even receiving some criticism for this fact. While the time in between each release allows for speculation and heightened anticipation, fans are a bit relieved to know that Bloom and Rage is only split into 2 parts, Tape 1 and Tape 2, and the wait between each won't even compare to Don't Nod's previous episodic titles. So originally, there were 2 different release dates. One of them got pushed a little bit longer, but it looks like the article is going to touch on that, so let's go further. It says, back in August, 2 months after sharing the decision to delay the game until early 2025, Don't Nod shared Lost Records' official release dates, February 18th and March 18th, for Tape 1 and Tape 2, respectively. Earlier this week, however, Don't Nod shared that their players will have to remark their calendars for Tape 2. In order to work on further optimization and polishing for Tape 2, the release date has now been pushed to April 15th. This is less than a month of delay, meaning the news does not come as a huge disappointment to fans and simply needs to be noted for those who have memorized the game's release schedule in anticipation. Don't Nod promises that they're going to keep the action going between the 2 releases, with tons of surprises up their sleeve. Ultimately, the delay is negligible and simply allows the players to have more time to play, speculate, and enjoy community anticipation and conversation. This is nothing compared to Don't Nod's previous release schedule and helps boost the original fun of Don't Nod's episodic games. Hopefully, this should be the last game delay. It also looks like it was best that Don't Nod stepped aside to allow Double Exposure its time in the spotlight. Because it tanked pretty fast, especially people who bought early access to the game and got the first 2 chapters in advance. You quickly saw the difference between the first 2 chapters and the last 3 chapters. And that was very disappointing. But let's meet the characters from Lost Records. So Lost Records features 4 best friends, with Swan being the player's vehicle to meeting them all. So this is Swan, here with the red hair in the middle. For months, players have been treated to more information about the game Don't Nod has been developing. The initial announcement was a brief teaser trailer, but the world of Velvet Cove has slowly been unveiled as Lost Records release approaches. Swan is the playable and protagonist in this supernatural story, accompanied by her best childhood friends, Nora, Autumn, and Kat. All with unique personalities to make up the perfect misfit friend group. Players will meet the girls during the summer of 1995, each with their own 90s style. Swan is the friend group's designated photographer, videographer, documenting all their adventures, and of course being a socially awkward teenager. Players will even be able to customize Swan's outfit, choosing their own 90s styles for her to adorn. Players will also have the freedom in terms of what Swan records around her, always keeping her camcorder on her, a gift for her 16th birthday. The ages of the girls are unknown, but they're all presumably around 17 in the 1995 timeline. Their counterparts, 27 years later, are consequently in their mid-40s. The older version of the girls have been kept much more tightly under wraps, with only Autumn having been shown briefly in trailers. Overall, the information players have been offered about Swan, since her shoes will be the one that players will be stepping into. Nora, Autumn, and Kat's personalities and roles have been pieced together from what Don't Nod has shown so far. Nora is the energetic punk friend of the group, with dyed hair and an unapologetic air to her. Autumn, the only friend whose appearance we've seen in the future, is a cool skater with the group with her hair half dyed green and a possible eye of Swan's affection. Kat is a silly headphone-adorned friend that Swan describes as a firecracker. They're a friend group made in heaven and made to last. Of course, one of the biggest plot points of Lost Records is the fact that none of them have spoken in 27 years. So the plot of Lost Records is enticing and undeniably supernatural. In Lost Records, players will be introduced to Swan and her friends on the day that will be the beginning of the end for their tight-knit friend group. They've just come up with a name for their band, Bloom and Rage, and are enjoying this fun, adventurous summer day. That night, however, things will change. Something will happen that will cause these friends to never speak of it, nor to each other, ever again. Don't Nod has done a phenomenal job at building the anticipation surrounding the plot, while maintaining a lot of mystery. Swan and her friends will encounter something supernatural out in the woods, something that Don't Nod has declared as the Abyss, sharing teaser messages from the Abyss itself. What the Abyss is exactly is unknown. Players have seen in trailers this gaping purple vortex-type hole in the woods, crackling with energy and sucking up an entire flock of birds before injecting them dead onto the ground. The Abyss has been teased as almost sentient, with Don't Nod sharing messages online that implies that it's angry and maybe hungry. The Abyss is ominous, and whatever happened when Swan and her friends encountered it that night tore them apart. Now, 27 years later, a package arrives on the doorstep of Autumn's mother's house, simply addressed to Bloom and Rage. With the words, "Remember, 1995? This prompts Autumn and Swan to meet, ending a 27-year-long silence. The friends swore to never speak about what happened that night, so who could possibly know enough to send this ominous package? Players have been wondering for months what could possibly be in that package, but surely nothing good. What happened with the Abyss appears to go past the supernatural, and the events of that night branch into something deeper that has left deep-seated regret. One of the trailers for Lost Records features a monologue from the adult Autumn, where she's presumably talking to Swan, stating, "We forgot for a reason." Outside the events of the Abyss, players have been given a look inside what the friend group life was like, seeing that they faced bullying and family troubles, indicating that things weren't as idyllic as they seemed even before the Abyss. There's also the question of what happened with Swan that night, as Autumn goes on to say, "For the hurt, the harassment, and the harm that you did." It leaves players with many questions and an anticipation that has them at the edge of their seats. Lost Record is a choice-driven narrative that resembles Don't Nod's Life is Strange titles. Players will enjoy another staple Choice Matters Don't Nod title as they take charge of Swan's dialogue. It's unknown how far the choice-driven aspect of the game will go, whether it will culminate in major choices, and if the game will even have multiple endings. Given Don't Nod's track record, it's easy to presume this will be the case, but so far, marketing has focused on the concrete narrative of the game. Interacting with the environment will also be present, a mechanic that many players of the narrative game love, as it helps to flesh out the story even further. Players have even seen a nod to Life is Strange in one of the objects that players can interact with early on, showing an empty VHS case titled the Vortex Club. One thing players were desperate to know early on, however, is whether Lost Records would be a part of the Life is Strange universe. Unfortunately, I don't think this is going to be true, considering that Lost Records is by Don't Nod, and Don't Nod is no longer a part of the Square Enix family and has now given the Life is Strange franchise to Deck 9. So I don't think this is going to be true. Don't Nod has distanced itself from its original IP, Life is Strange, after publisher Square Enix decided to hand it off the rights to Deck 9 entirely. Not all of the fans of the series were aware of this, however, as the details surrounding this decision remain shrouded in mystery. It's presumed the transition occurred sometime in 2020. According to Don't Nod, they had no intention of saying goodbye to the universe they had created, but Square Enix seemingly felt different. Aside from the lack of public knowledge that Don't Nod no longer had the rights to Life is Strange, the studio made another title, while not bearing the franchise's name, was in fact part of the Life is Strange universe. Tell Me Why was Don't Nod's last title that connected to the Life is Strange universe, and while it took place in Alaska, a world away from both Life is Strange and Life is Strange 2, it still had identifiable connections to that world. That means when Lost Records was initially announced, players thought that this was Don't Nod stepping back into that universe. Since then, they've not only clarified this is not the case, but this is actually the start of something new. Don't Nod has stated that they hope Lost Records will be a launch pad into a new universe, and this time there's no risk of losing it due to a publisher's decision, as it's being independently published. What this universe will look like won't be something players can even theorize about until they get their hands on Lost Records. Still, given the high anticipation surrounding the potential starting point for it, players will be itching to dive into the next installment for it. Lost Records Bloom and Rage will be available on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S and X, and PC, with no deluxe or ultimate editions, no early access, or any other additions to the game that players so frequently see now. Players can't even pre-order the digital versions, as there is no pre-order bonus. Instead, pre-orders are only open for the physical versions so that players can get the game on day one. Don't Nod has stirred up a frenzy of anticipation and excitement for this next title while keeping it shrouded in mystery, strategically doling out crumbs to make fans desperate to know more. It's been a painfully long but relatively short in comparison to the development times of other games nowadays. Now, Lost Records is less than a month away, and soon players will know so much more about what happened to Swan and her friends on that night in the summer of 1995. I'm very excited for this game. The marketing, the hype, and the fact that it's Don't Nod making the story, I think it'll actually be compelling. Even though there's only one ending and there is no other timelines or final choices you can make, I think that it's going to be very exciting. I've already earmarked that day because, again, there's no pre-orders, no early access, which makes it fair for all players. We're all going to experience the story on the same day, unless you just choose not to get the game that day. But I think that was something that hurt Double Exposure, was that some people had the first 2 chapters and posted content spoiling the storyline 2 weeks before the game actually fully came out for everyone else. And that made it very difficult because half your incentive of playing a narrative game is making the choices for yourself for the first time. But if you've already seen the first 2 chapters, it's hard to make an original decision. And so it's I'm glad that Don't Nod is going to stick to the way the game was. Life is Strange 1 didn't have early access. Nobody even knew about that game, and it was new in its genre. And I think they can recapture that same fun and that same epic storytelling in this new universe. So I hope they have great success with this launch. I'm so excited for February 19th. So definitely let me know in the comments below what you think about Bloom and Rage. Do you plan on playing Tape 1 on the day it releases?